I remember Vanilla Coke.
Do you?
Yeah, kind
Wow,
of.
look at you, having memories.
Yeah. We're at the age now where we can talk about shit that young people don't know what we're saying half the time.
No comments. No comments, not even one. Welcome to VCR, Vintage Cinema Rewind, bringing old movies to new viewers. I'm Blake.
And I'm Michael.
And today we have a movie that I wanted to do. And
That's
the reason
right.
why is because it relates to a very, very important movie to 2025.
That's right. One battle after another.
One battle after another.
One battle after another. Phenomenal movie. Arguably the best of 2025.
Yeah, I think so
Yeah.
as well. It's my number one of 2025 right now.
I think Sinners still slightly edges out for me, but this is definitely a strong 2.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and I think that the differences between Sinners and this movie are also the reasons, maybe in part, why I like this movie more than you do.
I'm sure you did.
Because
yeah.
spoilers, we did have a brief conversation before we got started, and
Right.
it sounds like you maybe did not have as much good of a time as I did.
Wow, we're really burying the lead on this one, aren't we? Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about Battle of Algiers from 1966. I don't know if we said that yet.
Yeah, I guess maybe
But
we
it'll
should
be in
have
the
led
title.
with that. Yeah, yeah. So, you know what's funny, actually? Actually, it's not funny. I'm a little ashamed to admit this. I knew next to nothing about Algeria before walking into this movie.
You know what? Honestly, though, that was something that I was going to talk about in the Who This Movie Is For, Does It Hold Up? Like, how much do you really need to know about Algeria and colonialism in Algeria before watching this movie, do you think?
Arguably not that much. I did, while this movie was going on, at one point I did, like, just pop open my phone. I just do, like, wait, what's going on? Like, Algeria. And I was like, again, this just shows maybe just how, like, painfully white I am. But I was like, I don't even really know where Algeria is. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
I did that too.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, it's in Africa.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I know that now. So, yeah, I mean, when the oppressive imperial forces start speaking French and start antagonizing a mostly Muslim native populace, you're kind of just like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
You know, it's the bad. You know, it's Dune essentially.
Or Star Wars.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's the paratroopers.
essentially. I mean, like, you could arguably, you know, as to your question, how much do you need to know? Arguably, not a lot.
No, I honestly, I think that you can go into this one knowing very little about the actual what was going on at the time, and it kind of explains it a little bit in the start. Like, you know, it talks about the fact that there's colonialism going on at this point in time. It's in the 50s, 1950s.
And I mean, you know, and again, I want to phrase this carefully. I don't mean this to be dismissive, but, like, you could almost just kind of look at it as like a work of pure fiction in terms of, like, there seems to be good guys and bad guys, but then that line becomes much more ambiguous as the movie goes on, which I think kind of ties into how this movie relates, you know, contextually to One Battle After Another.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Which is very much about, like, our, you know, the cycle of violence in our super polarized times.
Twimes.
Our super polarized times. I didn't know I had a speech impediment. I'll edit most of that out. But
I hope you keep everything.
All right. Well, you heard it here first, folks.
Wow.
I want to point out that Blake's dog was walking down the stairs as I was talking, and I think that threw me off. I've
Okay.
also been doing crack.
Wow. Okay. So many admissions tonight on this podcast.
Yeah, there may be more.
Yeah, so I completely agree that I think that going in knowing very little, because, you know, as a human being in the Western world, like, we are educated somewhat in some of this stuff because it does relate to a lot of our collective histories.
Yeah, I mean, we all know about colonialism, and there's been a lot of dialogue about it, especially in the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, so it's easy to, even though if you aren't, like, directly connected to France or Algeria, you know, it's pretty easy to just kind of, like, fit whatever pre-colonialism kind of situation that you might have been or historically your ancestors
Mhm.
might have been a part of one way or another kind of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, spoiler alert, Blake and I both have French ancestors.
Well,
So our ancestors were dicks, apparently.
Well, and the other piece of this too is it's also not only is it about colonialism, but it's also very much, and I guess this goes with colonialism, about revolution and
Independence.
independence, suppression, propaganda. Like this is a
Mhm.
very interesting ideas movie. And
It's
that's
certainly-
where watching it I realized that this was not going to be a you movie because it's far less interested in the characters and their stories rather than the ideas of revolution.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm kind of thinking about A Night to Remember, another movie that you liked a lot more than I
Yeah.
did. I guess maybe that is one of my peculiarities as a viewer, is that I really need a main character to latch onto.
Yeah.
And there is arguably a main character in this movie
Yeah.
that they do set up, but like you almost kind of forget about him at
He
different
disappears for large chunks of the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting, right? Like
Mhm.
imagine if in Rocky we just kind of left Rocky behind for 30 minutes and then we came back to him like, oh yeah, the fight. So
Yeah. Well, and I think that
I think I'm exaggerating about the 30 minutes part, but
it honestly could have been upwards of that long, but I think that this is something that I find a lot of older movies do is
Mhm.
they care more about like the high level community than they care about the individuals. And I don't know, in sometime in the last 50 years, that really changed what the focal point of a film was. Like it very much more became about a central character and their how they chart whatever situation they are and how they grow or don't grow as a person kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's actually not at all about the growth of any one particular character. There's a very interesting conversation that two characters have about revolution and terrorism and the natural path forward towards independence.
Right.
And I think that's a very interesting conversation. It's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. But apart from that, it's not like we see the main character really have any growth.
No, and I mean the whole movie kind of maybe this is kind of a good place to jump into the plot summary.
Yeah,
such
for
that
sure.
It is, fuck, I just have to. Maybe
You're
this...
really excited about it, and then you were like, "Oh shit, no! Now I have to talk about the plot."
Yeah. No, maybe this is just it shows just how unessential the main character is. I just need to remember his name.
Ali Lapointe.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm second guessing myself. I'm pretty sure it's centered. Yeah, Ali Lapointe.
Ali Lapointe, right? Okay. So, yeah. So, we open in medias res to I guess you could say like a Algerian freedom fighter being brutalized and tortured by the French authorities. He ends up giving up the location of like a safe house to where these authorities are then going to go and arrest Ali Lapointe, this kind of like scrappy young resistance fighter. He's kind of just this. He seems to be kind of just a low-level thug and like, maybe a slightly talented boxer who then gets swept up into the cause.
Mhm.
And then we kind of flash back to what led up to that point. And again, as we've already spoken to, it's less about our scrappy young main character, and it's more about just the escalating tensions between the freedom fighters and the authorities, right?
Yep.
I guess, and maybe this is a dismissive comparison to make, especially, because this film was commissioned by Algeria, kind of about their own history.
Yeah.
So, but it's almost kind of like, imagine if Luke Skywalker was barely essential to the movie, and the first Star Wars was more just about the rebels versus the Empire, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and again, like I was saying, that this movie, there's a point in history when movies really decide that the film should be about one particular character or maybe a few characters and how they grow or don't grow over a series of events. And I think that, this being one of those old-timey kind of style of films, I actually think this is one of the most effective versions I've seen of what they're doing versus what modern movies do.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. And this movie does do a really, really, really good job about just showing like the human cost of the conflict, as well as, what I said earlier, these escalating tensions, right? Like there's some great scenes where like they start like locking the city down and putting barbed wire up over everything and
Yeah.
installing all these military checkpoints. It's very effective in that sense where, even though I wasn't quite as engaged by this movie as you were, I was kind of like, oh shit, like things are not great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So characters and people you may know. That this is the other thing that's kind of interesting about this movie, and actually reminds me of City of God, is that it's a movie that actually takes more of the people who either lived this or grew up in Algeria and made them the central stars, more based on what their appearances and making them look as similar as possible to the real life people that they portrayed.
Yeah.
And so the focus is more on the realism rather than getting famous actors. Like specifically, there's actually only one actual actor in this movie, and he's the French guy playing Colonel Matthew.
Oh, really?
Jean Martin, yes. So he was a relatively famous theater actor in France at the time, and so they wanted him in because they wanted a character or an actor in who kind of had a little bit more, natural. There was a naturalness to him, and they also wanted somebody in who was going to kind of have that Western charisma, like leading man style of approach to this movie, because I think that adds to something, because having this character in who's essentially the bad guy, but also is somebody that you could either know or have seen before in another movie, and that character would typically be the hero, I think adds an interesting layer to this film.
I would agree with that. He also kind of, even though this movie is a little bit morally ambiguous about who's correct or not in this conflict, you do kind of, it is funny. The second he showed up on screen, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the bad guy.
Yeah.
Like he has a way of just radiating menace.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And there's a scene where he's like reviewing footage with his men and he's talking about, blah, blah, blah tactics and stuff. I'm like, yeah, okay. Like I'm scared of this guy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
he has that cool calmness to him that, I think that it's the people who are calm in the face of these horrifying situations that are often the scariest.
Yeah, and like the vibe I got from that character was that he's slightly enjoying this.
Yeah.
Like he's almost kind of like, all right, like
yeah.
Yeah, like I got kind of like Colonel or Kilgore vibes from this guy. A little bit of like, all right, cool. Like, let's root these bastards out.
Right.
Yeah,
it's a game.
Yeah, it's a fun day at the office for this guy.
So Colonel Matthew, played by Jean Martin, who actually you may know from Sergio Leone films.
Oh.
He starred in My Name is Nobody. He was also in a movie called The Day of the Jackal.
Oh, okay. I'm not really familiar with either of those.
Neither am I, but
cool.
I added both of them to my watch list because they both sounded pretty interesting. And really, otherwise, there's not a whole lot of famous actors in here. I did want to point out one other actor, though, and that is the actor playing El Hadi Jafar, one of the main leaders of the revolutionaries. So he's played by Saadi Yassif. And the reason why I'm bringing him up is he actually was the one who wrote the book that this movie is based on, and he actually was one of the leaders of the revolutionaries in Algeria.
Shit. So he was kind of first-hand responder, I guess.
Yeah, like he actually when Algeria received their independence, he actually at the time was in jail and had the death penalty. Like he was going to be
sentenced to death.
He was sentenced to death by the French, and so they actually let him out at that point, and he actually became a senator in the new Algeria government.
Tight. Yeah. It's funny. I feel like nowadays in a lot of movies they'll like, they'll only let hot people on screen, but like looking at that guy, I'm like, when he showed up on screen, I was like, this guy looks like he's seen some shit.
Yeah.
Like he looks wizened a little.
Right.
He's done things.
Yeah, and I think that kind of, again, adds to the credibility of this movie, because we haven't really talked about this yet, but the way that this movie is filmed, the stylization of it is very much like a docudrama, essentially.
Yeah, and that's another... I kept thinking about A Night to Remember while watching this movie, but like it does kind of lean into that. And there's also a great moment where, Colonel Matthew or whatever is like they're reviewing footage,
Mhm.
and I actually leaned forward. I'm like, is that like film footage or is that actual boots on the ground like documentary footage that they splice into the movie?
Yeah. And there's actually, I think it was in the U.S. release, they had a note saying at the end that they didn't use any newsreel footage, that this was all real footage.
Okay, interesting,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, so it definitely, even the explosions looked quite real.
Yeah,
Maybe that's a weird thing
absolutely.
to say, but like, obviously shit blows up in this movie, and it's not like a big old fireball straight from a Michael Bay movie. I'm just like, wow, I think that building actually just collapsed.
Hmm. And then this movie was directed by Gillo Pontecorvo, who's an Italian filmmaker. He was really involved in the 60s and 70s political cinema movement
Mm-hmm.
in Europe. So this is obviously his most famous movie, and we'll talk about awards in the second half in the deep dive. But he also had some other famous movies that kind of took on the Holocaust. He made some films about slavery. So he's
Mm-hmm.
very politically charged director from Italy. So who this movie's for? We kind of talked about this already, but I think kind of just reiterating again, you kind of have to be more in the mindset of, okay, this is an ideas movie. This is a movie about a point in time, and we're gonna explore this history in this world in which maybe there aren't necessarily good and bad guys, but individual good and bad guys. But it's about a group of people who are systemically oppressed and have been for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Definitely.
And so I think the only other movie that I was thinking about that I would maybe directly relate this to, that if you're a fan of that movie, you'd probably like this one, that actually have some really interesting similarities, is I believe it's 2009 District 9.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
A little.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
also a movie about colonialism.
Boy, is it ever.
Yeah, and I mean also taking place in Africa even, right? So
Right.
I think that movie is something, and even the style of how that movie is made, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very much like a found footage style movie,
Boots on the
docudrama.
ground kind of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that the only thing I'll say about whether this movie holds up necessarily, I think the only thing for me that I kind of noticed and felt was a little bit jarring was some of the individual violence was a little old timey, like the way people got stabbed and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. Which I mean, to be fair, all violence from that,
Yeah,
it
exactly.
all looks like shit, right? Like it's one of those movies where like, someone gets shot and there's no like squib, there's
Yeah,
no blood. They just kind of grasp a part of their body and then collapse,
right.
right? Where you're
Yeah,
just like, I guess that guy's
in
dead.
a very dramatic fashion,
Yeah, like
often.
Ark, I'm dead. like, like you think they're like 1 second away from like vomiting out a whole soliloquy before they die.
Yeah. But what I'll say as a counterpoint to that, I think that the bigger moments of violence in this movie are really, really effective in that there's a tension that kind of builds up to these big moments that happen in this movie, and then you have the actual events themselves happen, and then there's kind of this living with the consequences after, and like seeing the
Yeah.
immediate consequences of what these big violent actions have on the people.
Yeah, agreed, right? Like there's a very to me, I think the most effective scene was, and I guess this is a little bit of a spoiler, but whatever. They decide they're gonna bomb some certain locations, one of them being like a cafe or a bar or
Yep.
something. And they send a young woman to do it. And there's a really chilling moment where, she's just sitting there with her bomb and she looks around the bar and we see all these people who are in there just kind of like living their lives, doing their thing.
Right.
There's even a couple kids in there. And, it stretches out the tension of that moment to really make you go, oh, this is bad, right? Like
Yeah.
innocent people are going to get caught in this crossfire.
Yeah.
Like a lot of
Absolutely.
them, actually.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So, really effective in my opinion, even though there might be some things that might be a little jarring for some people. So, yeah, at the end of the day, you kind of have to be more interested in the ideas of this movie rather than the characters.
I would add on to that I think I actually learned a few interesting things about Algeria in after watching this movie.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, oh, okay, interesting. So, like, I'd say if you're a student of history or you're interested in Algeria or even just, colonialism and how a lot of these colonial enterprises were toppled, like, you would probably get a lot out of this movie.
This is probably one of, if not the most important film about colonialism.
Yeah, I'd say
Today.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, when to watch? I think this one's probably a Sunday movie. It's black and white. It's a historic film. That's kind of when I like to watch those. But honestly, I could make an argument for most nights of the weekend. Like, this is a pretty big, epic film.
I'd agree.
It has thousands of extras involved in it. It's got some very big set pieces. So it's full of action. There's a lot happening in this movie. So, it could be a blockbuster movie, but given the subject matter, to me, it's a little bit more of a Sunday movie.
To me, this is actually more of an afternoon movie.
Yeah.
This is the kind of movie I'd watch like at 3 or 4 in the afternoon, right? Because, like, you're right, it is epic, but it's not necessarily. What am I trying to say? It's like it's epic in scope, though not necessarily epic in tone.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's a little bit of a thinky kind of movie.
Absolutely. It is. Yep. Yeah. Where to watch right now? Streaming on Tubi, which is where I watched it.
It's also free on YouTube right now.
Oh, cool.
The whole thing is on YouTube. It's got we'll link to it in the description.
Yeah, I just added a playlist to our YouTube whenever we find a movie that's just free on YouTube, we'll just add it to that list.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're spreading the love.
Yeah.
The
so
love.
I think I got The Sweet Hereafter and Last Night on there, as well as some of the Tarkovsky movies that I've been watching.
Yeah. No, that's something we're going to have to keep an eye out. It is funny how sometimes, like, YouTube will really draw a hard line in the sand, and then other times they're just like, fuck it, here it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, did you know that Dan Harmon came out with a new show, Populace?
No.
Nah, it doesn't look great, to be honest. But, like, they have whole episodes on YouTube, and I'm just like, what? All right. Like,
Interesting.
yeah, I guess.
Cool.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But here it is.
Yeah. Anything spoiler free you want to say about Battle of Algiers before we?
I will say, and I don't want to really poo-poo this movie, I didn't really like this movie all that much, but I really want to say, that doesn't mean it's bad. I think it's a good movie. I just don't think it's for me.
Yeah.
I'm being very deliberate with my word choice here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. And that's kind of exactly what I thought as I was wrapping this movie up. I was like, oh, this was a very, very good movie. That's not a Michael movie.
It's not a Michael movie.
No.
That said, there are some very interesting, chilling sequences in this movie. So, like, if you do fit the criteria, I do think it's worth a watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's maybe not quite essential viewing, but it's very, very close to that line.
I'd agree. Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Okay.
We will see you next week for the deep dive.
Tell your dad.
Tell your dad.
Bye.